Ja, dann darf ich Gro Skaaren-Fystro vorstellen. Sie ist Sozialwissenschaftlerin und für Transparency International Norwegen seit 2004 tätig, zum einen als Beraterin, zum anderen als Verantwortliche für ein gemeinsames Trainingsprogramm mit dem Internationalen Roten Kreuz im Bereich der Korruptionsprävention in humanitären Operationen. Von 1994 bis 2004 war sie für das United Nations Development Program tätig, unter anderem zuvor auch als Beraterin für das norwegische Außenministerium im Bereich der Entwicklungshilfe. Sie hat den Eiti-Prozess in Norwegen als MSG-Mitglied von Anfang an begleitet und wird als ehemaliges Mitglied der MSG auch aus ihren Erfahrungen berichten. Norwegen hat als allererstes OECD-Land die Eiti implementiert. Insofern sind wir sehr gespannt. Im Februar 2015 wurde der 6. Bericht veröffentlicht und ja, Gro, ich darf Ihnen jetzt das Wort übergeben.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yep. Thanks for the invitation, and I think it's very interesting to hear about the German deliberation to become EITI member. For Norway, this was something that was very interesting from the beginning. I think we were, as I'm representing Transparency International, coming from a country that is big in oil and gas industry as exporter. Of course, when we first heard about the EITI initiative, this was something that caught our interest right away. And then, of course, with the inspiration by Professor Peter Eigen, I think it was only natural that we started on our discussions back home in Norway. And that is a long time ago. That was actually even before 2007. But I put 2007 up here because that's when the International EITI Secretariat moved to Oslo in 2007. I think before then, of course, the Norwegian government was very supportive of the idea of EITI. Also, Norwegian companies were interested in saying that they were supporting the idea. And then, of course, civil society was a driving force. And in particular, I would say Publish What You Pay. Norway has been very active, but also Transparency International Norway. But, you know, in the beginning, I don't think we foreseed that we would become an EITI compliant country, or that, you know, that we would actually participate as such, but rather that we'd support it as an initiative that we are promoting through our aid and international assistance when it comes to helping other countries that are facing the resource curse. You know, because in Norway, of course, we had a different experience. In Norway, we had the experience where the revenues from the oil and gas industry actually benefited the people, and which was something that actually helped to build our economy in the country. So that is a unique experience that we, in terms of comparative advantages when it comes to, you know, aid and so on, what is it that we can at least present to other countries? It's the positive experience that we had from the oil and gas industry. But then, since the Secretariat then moved to Oslo, who are we to suggest that, you know, the EITI is a very good initiative for developing countries if we are not doing the mechanism ourselves? So I think it was a very strong argument there for also the Norwegian government to apply and to take part of this. It was very difficult in the very beginning, and it was difficult because, you know, it was I have to say, a certain arrogance, saying that, you know, we are so transparent. All the information on the resource flows is available. It's publicly available. So, you know, why are we doing this in addition? But then I think it was in particular the civil society organizations that said that, you know, where is our credibility if we are promoting this wonderful initiative in other countries if we are not doing it ourselves? So I think that was, in the end, convincing our government that, yes, okay, let's go for it. And then, so it started. We became EITI candidate in 2009, and the first report was then delivered in 2009, and then we have been compliant since 2011. And in terms of innovations, I don't think it's very innovative in the sense that, you know, this is the traditional thinking of the EITI, extractive industries, in other words, oil and gas industry. That was the most important to us in the Norwegian context. We have had some discussions on whether or not we should include mining. But that has not been taken into account, and it's just for the oil and gas industry that is included. So let me just take the conclusion first, because I think domestically the EITI has had a certain importance, but I think the most important effect it has had is internationally. Norway in international affairs, much more, because it became the first OECD country to be approved for full members of EITI, and I think that was a very important signal from OECD country to actually do that in this particular industry, which is so prone to corruption and such a big need for more transparency. So and that's also what the minister at the time, the Minister of Petroleum and Energy, said. He said that, you know, by implementing the EITI at home, we want to encourage resource-rich countries to transparency of financial flows. So I think that was the real motivation, and I think, frankly, that is also a very important encouragement for us to continue to do this. So that only shows the deliberations that took part started back in 2007, leading up to becoming a compliant country. And then we have done, actually, so far, 7 reports. We are going to publish the 7th report in January 2016. In terms of the multi-stakeholder group, of course, it is the traditional golden triangle, the government, companies, civil society organizations. On the government side, it's the most important ministries that are members, Ministry of Petroleum and Ministry of Finance. Then in terms of companies, it's Statoil and ExxonMobil. And then civil society organizations, it's the Norwegian Oil and Gas Association, the Norwegian Confederation of Trade Unions. KFUM is a Christian organization that is Publish What You Pay, and then it's TI Norway. And this has varied a little bit over the years. The MSG is appointed by the cabinet every 2nd year. And then, of course, it's up to the stakeholders themselves to decide who they want to have represented in the stakeholder group. So, for example, the civil society organizations, they get together and decide, you know, which ones should be represented for the next 2 years. So there has been some variations in that. The government has been represented excuse me, with the same 2 ministries from the beginning. We do not have an EITI secretariat for the Norwegian membership as such, but it is hosted in the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy. They are sort of acting as a secretariat for the MSG. So it's not an independent secretariat outside of these 3. And that is the front page of the last report. And I say there, okay, 7 EITI reports by 2016. This is the 6th report, and it's Deloitte who has been doing this as a consultancy, actually since the beginning. But in midterm, we had a new round of, you know, selecting which consultancy should actually do this job. But it has been Deloitte from all those years. And well, not very surprisingly, you will find that the streams, I mean the resource flows, what the government receives is actually the same equivalent to what the companies are paying. And, you know, that's the whole point, isn't it? Because if there is a discrepancy there, then, of course, the civil society screams out, and, you know, where is the money? And that has never happened. And unfortunately, I think also that's why this is a little bit difficult to get public discussion around, to get attention at all. I think when we published the first report back in 2009, we had a launching event, we invited lots of people, we invited media, and so on, and we did get some media coverage and some public debate around it. But after that, it has been quite difficult, actually, to get any attention around the publication of these reports. Nevertheless, we think it's really important to do that because of the signals that it sends to the rest of the world, and also, if not only to actually confirm the facts and figures that you can also find elsewhere, I think it's a security mechanism that helps us to actually make sure that there is full transparency. But not only that, I think by doing this, I think we have also, we have not created innovations along the lines that I think Professor Müller laid out in terms of including new industries and so on, or Professor Eigen, he talks about this model, how we can apply this to other sectors, such as the garment industry, such as fisheries, a number of other wonderful ideas that are out there. We haven't really discussed that, but I think also we have to look at the country that we are in. It's Norway, it's oil and gas industry. That was the traditional approach, and I think we have been, up till now at least, only been able to stick with that and to focus on that. And But these are the kind of questions that we are continuously, of course, trying to figure out, maybe we should expand this model to some other areas. But of course, a very important issue in terms of innovation is disaggregation reporting, country and revenue stream, but also more easily access to information. That we are producing this report, at least it's a high quality report, where you can find the figures, and it's very you don't have to be an accountant or you don't have to be very specialized to be able to understand what's in the report. I think that's very important too, because even if we could argue in the past that all this information is available, it's important to have it easily available, and that to have information that actually communicates with the public at large. So, and then there are some technical improvements which I think has actually come with doing this exercise every year. So oil and gas, yes. What about mining? That has been discussion, but I think maybe an even more important question could have been for Norway is hydro energy. But I tell you, we haven't discussed that yet, but I think it's perhaps something for the future. The latest report reflects the new EITI standards that came in 2013. However, some reporting requirements in the new EITI standards are not included. One is revenue management and expenditure, because it goes all into the to the pension fund. This huge fund with all the oil and revenues from the oil and gas industry goes in there, and it's only a certain amount percentage of the interest rate that can go back to the economy and being spent. And the level and there is 4%. That's the maximum. And then of course it's always every year huge discussions as to how much we can allow ourselves to tap into that interest rate. But that's how it is. And then in terms of transportation payments, there is no payments as such, they found, so that's why it's not reported, although it's part of the EITI standard. Ad hoc subnational transfers, they found were not applicable either. Then when it comes to beneficial ownership, of course, that is a challenge, and that is not in the EITI reported in the EITI report as such, but it's reported elsewhere. And that is because we are about to set up, it has been decided in the parliament to set up a register of beneficiaries. So that is sort of a new development that is happening in parallel. So although it's not reflected in the report as such, it's happening. There was a question here how to keep up the engagement by the civil society organizations. And I think actually in this context, the civil society organizations have been very active in terms of hammering for, beneficial ownership. This registry, I think, has been driven forth, but also this disaggregation of data in terms of country-by-country reporting. I think the civil society has been very active in getting along the legislation in this area. So I think EITI has been extremely important because I think it has kept the attention there and helped us to actually keep the attention around the transparency issues, and then to make sure that all the information is actually available to the public. And I think this is an important one. It's a website which has been improved and relaunched this year, actually. And this is something, again, which I think the EITI, the MSG, has asked for many times. One place where you can get this kind of information easily available. Not only the figures in terms of the resource flows, but also, facts about the oil and gas industry, the history. So I think that one is actually quite good, and also it's reflected, since we are trying to be modern and forward-looking. We also have developed an app for the iPhone, so that you can download an app and get these facts and figures easily available if you wish. Way forward. Yes, the MSG has discussed the benefits of continuing the current EITI reporting. Since the information is publicly available, the report has limited value for the Norwegian public, but may have some value as a reference for stakeholder groups in other countries. So I think we will continue to do this. We will discuss how we can be perhaps more relevant so that we get more public attention around these things. And I think in that context, what is really interesting is to see whether we could get involved in some other sectors with this. I think in terms of having conversations between the civil society and the government, it's not a new phenomenon in Norway. It has always been, I would say, a very close contact between the civil society organizations and the government in terms of making new legislation. We find that we are being consulted to give input and so on, but I think this tripartite relationship between the companies, the government, and the civil society was something which was more innovative and new with the EITI, and I think so I hope that we can make ourselves relevant also for the future, and to continue also to work on the EITI standard, because there are some issues there which we need to work on to get better reflected in the report. Thanks.
Ja, vielen Dank, Gro. Gibt es an der Stelle Rückfragen, Verständnisfragen? Ja, Jürgen.
Jürgen Meyer from the German NGO Forum Environment and Development. I assume the Norwegian Oil and Gas Association is an industry association, is that right? So why do you classify that as civil society? I was a bit surprised by that.
Okay. I could have put them up with the companies, but then the question is, what is a civil society? In this context, I think we also put the trade unions in there, and because it's an association of interest. But it could also have been put in the first category.
Can I ask you a follow-up question, if you allow? If I take the German company Greenpeace Energy, which is wholly owned by Greenpeace, do you think that is civil society or a company?
Well, interesting. interesting question. I guess it has to do with, if you are making benefits, if you are a profit organization, then maybe you go more over to the private sector. But I feel that I'm a little bit hesitant to respond to that. I'm not quite sure. I would have guessed it should be a company, actually. If it's a non-profit organization, I think it goes under civil society. If it makes profit, I think it goes more under the industry, I guess. But maybe some others would help out on a question like this.
Vielleicht bleibt im Anschluss an den dritten Input auch noch mal Zeit, in sich zu gehen, sich darauf noch eine Antwort zu überlegen. Wolfgang Wodak dazu?
Ja, ich habe eine Frage, die nicht nur in diesem Zusammenhang wichtig ist, sondern ich glaube auch, dass es irgendwie auch für Transparency ist das auch eine wichtige Frage. Es gibt diese großen Firmen, die ja als Consulting-Firmen international die Konzerne, auch die Extractive Industry beraten und die dann auch sagen, wo man am besten sein Geld hintut, wie man diese Finanzströme so regelt, dass man die Gewinne optimieren kann. Da gibt es PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, Deloitte und die sind ja auch zum Teil Mitglied bei uns, bei Transparency. Und ich habe damit Probleme, wenn diese Konzerne, die haben ja gewaltige Interessenkonflikte. Und wir haben ja keine Chance, diese Interessenkonflikte wirklich sauber anzusprechen. Von daher weiß ich nicht, wie wir damit umgehen. Wir sind abhängig, weil die Unübersichtlichkeit dieser Wirtschaftsstrukturen, da wendet man sich immer an die großen Firmen, weil das keiner mehr managen kann, weil das keiner mehr übersieht und weil das also ganz schwierig nachzuvollziehen ist. Diese Organisationen haben die Verbindungen in alle Länder, in alle Möglichkeiten und sind so reich und so mächtig, dass sie viel mehr wissen als ein Wirtschaftsministerium oder als eine staatliche Organisation. Wir sind davon abhängig. Und wie gehen wir damit um?
I think that's a very important question. And of course, we have to make sure that we make very clear terms of reference and agreements with them for the assignment that we are making. I'm not sure if there is no guarantee, of course, that you get into these kind of problems that you are raising, but I don't quite see how we could otherwise actually go through this exercise. So you're right, we depend on them, but I think we have to be careful. I think we have to monitor what they're doing, make sure that, and I think one mechanism which is very good is in the MSG, that we are actually meeting with the company, they are presenting the results with us, and we are discussing issues such as the Eiti standard, how to deal with it and so on. So at least we have a close dialogue with them in the process for making these reports. But of course, it doesn't solve the problem, but I think it helps at least to keep them very close and cooperate with them.